Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, Standard 7 English. We are going to learn prose, The Selfish Giant by Oscar Wilde. Hope few of you already aware of the story, but still you will enjoy it. Before that, I request you to open up your imagination and imagine the visuals as we read by. Before we move on to the lesson, we will have a quick short introduction about the author. Oscar Wilde was born on 16 October 1854, Westland Road, Dublin, Ireland, and died on 30 November 1900, Paris, France. He is an highly productive Irish author. He wrote plays, fictions, essays, short poems, which is epigrams, and poetry. He graduated from Oxford University and was one of the most popular playwrights of its times. He took an active part in the fashionable society of London, for London is known for its fashion, and depicted its customs and habits in his plays with a great sense of humor. He also wrote moral stories for children. So The Selfish Giant was part of his collection, The Happy Prince, and other tales published in 1888. I would recommend to read these if you're a fiction lover. Now we'll move on to the prose introduction. The plot of the story was introduced by imagining a big garden free for all children to play and have fun in. The children were then engaged in creating play space and activities in the garden. They had ample time to explore the garden, but their happiness came to a pause with the giant coming back from a long vacation, for he went to visit his friend. The giant usually enjoyed the peace, calmness, the beauty of the castle and the green garden all by himself, and doesn't like to have a company, especially of children, for they are considered noisy. But after he returned to his castle, he reacted strongly when these get disturbed by the children and decided something drastic. He put up a signboard which was placed outside the garden. Thereafter, he repeatedly avoided the visiting of the children in his garden, also faced the consequences because of his action. But an incident made his heart change thereafter, so we'll see what it is. So come, let's explore. The Selfish Giant by Oscar Wilde. Every afternoon, as they were coming from school, the children used to go and play in the giant's garden. It was a large, lovely garden with soft green grass. Here and there over the grass stood beautiful flowers like stars. And there were 12 peach trees that in the springtime broke out into delicate blossoms of pink and pearl, and in the autumn bore rich fruit. The birds sat on the trees and sang so sweetly that the children used to stop their games to listen to them. "How happy we are here," they cried to each other. One day the giant came back to his castle. He had been to visit his friend the Cornish ogre, and had stayed with him for 7 years. When he had arrived, he saw the children playing in his garden. So the children, every time in the afternoon, once they finish with their studies, they come back to the giant garden. They enjoy a lot by playing. And the giant garden is such a large, lovely garden with soft green grass. You could also find some tall grasses, and among the grasses you can see beautiful flowers like stars. And they also have 12 peach trees, and they broke out into a delicate blossom during springtime, and they gave nice bore rich fruit during autumn season. And the birds also, they sit on the trees and they sing so sweet songs, and children, they love listening to them. They also exclaimed how happy they were to inside the garden to each other. But all these get spoiled because the giant have returned to his castle after 7 long years, because he had been to visit his friends, and he stayed there for 7 years. Now he has come back to his castle after 7 years. When he arrived, he saw the children playing in his garden. So of course, on seeing them, he got really angry. "What are you doing here?" he cried in a very gruff voice, and the children ran away. "My garden is my own garden," said the giant. "I will allow nobody to play in it but myself." So he built a high wall all around it and put up a notice board: "Trespassers will be prosecuted." He was a very selfish giant. The poor children now had nowhere to play. They tried to play on the road, but the road was very dusty and full of hard stones, and they did not like it. So, what happens here? As soon as he saw the children playing, he started to shout at them, and he also said that his garden, his own garden, and he doesn't like the children to play in his garden. So he just shooed them away. In order to stop the children again entering the garden, he raised the height of the wall. He just put up a high wall around it, around his garden, and he also put up a notice board stating trespassers will be prosecuted, which means whomsoever comes without the permission, they will be punished. So, for he was called a selfish giant, very selfish. The children, after the wall being put up and the notice board, they have no place to play, and they try to play on the roads, but it was very dusty and it has hard stones, and they do not like it either. So they used to wander around the high wall when their lessons were over and talk about the beautiful garden inside. How happy we were there, they said to each other. Though even though like they don't have place to play, they think back in time. They go back in time. They think about how happy they were playing inside the garden, and now they were stopped because they cannot enter the garden no more. So this is the picture from the textbook. Then the spring came, and all over the country there were little blossoms and little birds. Only in the garden of the selfish giant it was still winter. The birds did not care to sing in it, as there were no children, and the trees forgot to blossom. Once a beautiful flower put its head out of the grass, but when it saw the notice board, it was so sorry for the children that it slipped back into the ground again and went off to sleep. So what happens is, so the winter got over and the spring came, and all over the country the spring the blossom starts blooming, and they can also see a lot of birds all around. But except the giant's garden, it was still winter, and he cannot able to understand what went wrong. So he is still waiting for the uh, the spring to come to his garden. And when it's still winter in giant's garden, the birds also did not care to sing in it, as there were no children, and the trees also got to blossom. So once a flower put its head out from this grass, and as soon as he saw this notice board, again he went inside the ground back. Again he went to sleep. So the only people were allowed to enjoy in the garden was the frost and the snow. The only people who were pleased were the snow and the frost. Spring has forgotten this garden, they cried. They were so happy that they exclaimed, the spring has forgotten this garden, and so they decided, so we will live here all the year around. So the frost and the snow, they decided to stay for the entire year in giant's garden. The snow covered up the grass with her great white cloak. So the snow it's white, it's colorless actually. So it started to cover like a great white cloak. Cloak is a long loose outer garment, and this word is used here as a metaphor. And the frost painted all the trees silver. Then they invited the north winds to stay with them, and he came. He was wrapped in furs, and he rode all about the garden and blew the chimney pots down. This is a delightful spot, he said. We must ask the hail to visit us. So what's a hail? A small hard pellets of ice that fall from the sky like a rain. So as soon as the hail came, every day for 3 hours he rattled on the roof of the castle till he broke most of the slates, and then he ran round and round the garden as fast as he could go. He was dressed in grey, and his breath was like ice. Now, the everywhere except the giant's garden was spring and summer, but only in giant's garden it is still winter. And you could see, so who are the people were occupying and were allowed to stay in garden is winter, frost, hail, and north winds. So they were enjoying the stay in giant's garden For summer and spring, they didn't turn up because there were no children. So, as this was going on, the giant exclaimed, "I cannot understand why the spring is so late in coming," said the selfish giant, as he sat at the window and looked out at his cold white garden. "I hope there will be a change in the weather." So he still cannot able to understand what made the spring and the summer to stop them coming inside the giant's garden, and he still hope there will be a change in the weather. And this is how it looked, the giant's garden. It's so full of snow and frost. But the spring never came, nor the summer. The autumn gave golden fruit to every garden, but to the giant's garden she gave none. "He's too selfish," she said. "So it's always winter there, and the north wind and the hail and the frost and the snow danced about through the trees." So this is the end of part 1. We'll see the rest of the lesson in part 2. Thank you.